Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin here in cold ass Chicago. Also in cold ass Chicago is the Polish Prince Mateusz and the dog in the background there.
Yeah,
Oh, you
she just laid
camera
down.
shy.
Sorry,
Got the
yeah, she
coffee.
she
It's
knows it's
Monday,
on.
so it's grumpy, ready to go. And Mateusz has.
Coffee.
Oh, that's 2 weeks in a row.
I know,
We
I,
have,
I
yeah, that's
know.
great.
I feel bad. I feel like I once said that I would try and bring something different to every show, and I've failed already.
I almost feel like that's the coffee from last week. It's been sitting on the freaking table.
It is weirdly cold.
That's like a fake, like a Jello thing that you keep showing every week over there's the freaking.
It's if you roll back to last week and look at it, it's actually there's the same amount in there. It just hasn't moved.
Good morning, gentlemen, says Alan. Good morning, Alan. Welcome to the show. Yeah, a bunch of stuff to get to. Some odds news coming out this morning too, so we'll kind of like touch up on that. We'll go back and forth. I know you got some headlines, I got some headlines. Let's start with this is, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, or maybe it was a Discord channel. Sometimes it blends into each other, but Newcastle, this is official now. Anthony Gordon is going from Everton to Newcastle. Sparky's with us as well. Good morning, Sparky. So that deal is finalized. We were talking about this. It almost sounds like, while it's a lot of money to be able to give to Everton or to Sean Douche to be able to do something with, I feel like Everton kind of screwed themselves because the value definitely dropped and they probably could have gotten more for him.
Yeah, and given how many days are left in the window, even if you were to get more for Gordon at this point, it's not like it's going to necessarily help, because with the amount of time it takes to bring in players and to sign them in the last 2 days of the window here, they might not have enough time for Dyche to come in and really let them know who he's after, who he wants, who's possible of getting. I know that we just started to see links about Conor Gallagher going to Everton for about 40 million. So that covers kind of the Gordon fee right there. So if that's what they were looking for, then I guess they can get that done. And Gallagher plays in England. You know, he's close enough where he can go up for the physical, get all the paperwork signed, not a big deal. So in that sense, it can be done. But I think overall, for Newcastle, it's good business. I think 40 million for Gordon. He's shown flashes in the past. I know that, we're not necessarily on this side of Merseyside, we're not the biggest fans of Gordon. He seems like a pretty whiny kid, likes to flop and fall around a lot. But he has shown good flashes of skill. And I think 40 million for him at his age is fair. I think if someone were to offer, Liverpool 40 million for Curtis Jones, I think that would also be good business for Liverpool, kind of putting those two together in that terms of both kids coming from Liverpool and kind of seeing where they're at in their careers. And so I think it's good business for Newcastle because they add a little bit of depth. They could use a little bit of depth, and I think they're playing as well as they can play. And I think adding that kind of piece will help moving forward.
Yeah, see, there's no way in hell you're getting 40 for Curtis. Otherwise, I would drive him over there. But I know what you're saying. So okay, the whole Gordon thing. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Do I despise him? You think because he's from Everton, or do I despise him just because of the way he plays, the way he carries himself? He's a dirty player. He flip-flops like a fish out of water. It's just like nothing to like about the guy for me. I don't know. How do you feel? Is it like because he's wearing that jersey, so automatic dislike gets there? Sparky says, lucky to get $4.
Yeah.
We'll get, at least 40 or something. Come on now.
4 million.
But do you think it's just like the guy that he is or the jersey that he wore?
I think it's the latter more so than the Everton kid, because there's players across the league that we don't like because of their antics, and it doesn't typically matter what kit they're wearing. I think it's just the feelings are intensified because of the Everton kit, or in case of Bruno, wearing the United kit, we'd still most likely hate him if he was on any other team because of his antics, unless he was on our team. Because I don't want to get shot here, but I think Bruno would be a great fit for the Liverpool team. I think he would have been a good buy a couple of years ago, but that's not
Gordon.
No, Bruno.
Oh, Bruno.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Wait
a minute.
No, hell no. See, that's what I mean, though. Just the fact that I say hell no to that one, as much as I hate Bruno as well. Back in the day, I guess I would take him. So would you take Bruno now? See, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like
Oh, so dirty just thinking about it.
yeah, it's at a pretty low point. I feel like I can take some cheap shots at myself here. So I think I would. I know this goes back to a conversation we had last year. I think it was, would you take Bruno, Richarlison, or Neymar? I think that was between the three.
Yes, and death wasn't an option.
And I think I went Bruno then, and I think I would still go Bruno.
Yeah, but I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, the options you're presenting are so brutal. It's like would you take Kazi on the team? I'd rather have Bruno. So speaking of Kazi, he says the main thing about Gordon is fucking dribble. And I don't know, like in some ways, I thought he's a rare spark and attacking like force in that team, but I don't know. It looks like that because everybody else is even more dreadful, like Kazi says, and then he looks like he's a spark, kind of like Gray. And was that you? Did you sit on something?
Excuse me.
I was gonna say, what is in that coffee? But yeah, I mean, I think that's so. We'll see, right? I mean, I think we're gonna see how much of a player he is now, more, or is he gonna get a lot better? Do you think? Because he's going to be surrounded by better players too. So that can kind of go both ways.
Yeah, I think this is a classic situation of where you have potentially a really good talent. I don't want Kazi to say anything that, that I didn't say. Potentially a really good talent that plays on a really poor team. And sometimes those really good players on really bad teams are not good players on good teams. And sometimes the really okay players on mediocre or bad teams can be good players on good teams because it just happens to be the right fit, the right system. They play them better. They have more confidence because they're not in a relegation battle every week. Imagine playing for a team that's fighting for Champions League. Like that makes you want to play more. At least I think from my perspective is it would make me want to play more than having to fight a relegation battle every week. But on the flip side, I mean, he went up in the Everton youth system. So it's like, you're also, if you're in the relegation battle, you're also fighting for that club and you're fighting for that city too, wanting to make sure that you guys stay up. So I can see both sides of it, but I think it really depends on the system and on the fit. And I think he can do really well at Newcastle. I don't think, to Kazi's point, he said he might not start 8 games. That's fine, but he might come off the bench and score a couple in 4 or 5. So it's one of those things where, they didn't buy him to be a starter. I don't think that 40 million was for starter money. I think it was just for depth money because they have that covered. It's just a matter of, they see all these other teams that they know they're going to be in Europe next year, right? So, I mean, most likely. So they want to prepare for that, make sure they have enough depth because they've seen what happens to teams that don't have enough depth to play across different competitions. So if you get that taken care of now, you're much better suited in getting him into the team, the transfer window before the summer, before Europe, to get him more integrated. So I think part of it is also kind of, playing your cards better and what you're dealt with and being able to move ahead of the train than behind it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good opportunity move too, right? Because I really think they would have had to pay more if they bought him in summer. And if Sean Dyche comes and saves them, I think he would be worth, again, more in the upcoming summer because you would think if they're, bumping back up out of the relegation zone, Gordon will probably have something to do with it one way or the other on that team. So he would bring his price back up, the whole English thing and stuff. So I think in some ways, it's good timing for Newcastle to come in. He's like, I bet you Sean is going to need money. Why don't we just buy Gordon from you, give you some money kind of a deal and step in and swoop him out? So I thought that was like a smart move on their part too. Just a guy that I love to hate. It's just like the whole diving, leave alone the diving. There are a lot of like divers. But I mean, first of all, he's bad at it. There's a lot of divers, but this guy sees yellow cars all the time. Yeah. So he's not even good at diving. And then aside from that, I feel like he's just like a dirty player. But that's like an interesting topic too. I've done both back in the day, like be the real good guy on a constantly losing team or be one of the guys on a winning team. And I would say definitely the latter is a lot more enjoyable in the long run. The first one maybe helps your ego a little bit, but I feel like that gets old. At least for a guy like me who's competitive and wants to win, that doesn't matter. That just gets like more and more frustrating. I rather have a couple of guys around me to help me win and then, like enjoy the whole team atmosphere of like a winning team. But yeah. I mean, obviously I wasn't getting paid for this shit either. So that kind of like changes the equation. So you're up next, your headline.
So the headline, it's more of sort of like a callback to last week because I didn't really, there wasn't much to find this week, and unfortunately. So what I have here, actually, and I know how to do this.
Do you though? Do you though? Because I don't see it down below on the screen. Yeah,
you know,
might as well read it out.
Well, it's actually a picture.
But that doesn't help. Yeah,
picture's worth 1,000 words. So I don't know if you could make me say 1,000 words right now. You know what, Timothy? I actually I apologize here, and I'm just going to go through the motions. Can you
jump to the next headline?
Yeah, actually, let's do that, and I'll remember what I did last week.
So we were talking about it this morning on the Discord channel, and we did post an invite to the Discord channel. I believe it was on Friday, so it's on our Facebook page. If you want to hop on there, join the discussion. Bright and early this morning, Kazi
Did you say Brighton?
Started the discussion about Cancelo, about his loan. And, you know, you got a bunch of naive guys in there. First thing in the morning, they didn't have their coffee yet, thinking it's 60 million for a loan and stuff. Like the Polish prince over here. But, yeah, what do you make of that deal? Oh, here we go. There's a photo.
There it is.
Better
so
late than never.
A circle red card, because last week we were talking about white cards, and then this thing shows up in the Wrexham and Sheffield game. I know they used to. It's a real card. They used to, like, back in the. I mean, you should know this more than me. Back in the day, some refs.
That's all I got to say about that.
Some refs used to have different shapes for the color, so they could decide easier which card that is that they're reaching in for in their pocket, right? So if you can feel the circle, it's the red, or if you feel the square, it's a yellow. So I know this ref here had the red circle card and made that known in this example here. So
maybe Kazi is older than me, or we didn't have this thing when I was growing up in Turkey. Like, we were behind the days, couldn't make round shapes or something, stuck with the rectangular. Because
I feel like it'd be cheaper than rectangular. It's less area, but then you have to cut it. So maybe there's the labor of cutting.
Yeah, see, there you go. So, there you go. Yeah. You gotta consider everything. The cost accounting comes into play right there. Yeah, that's I have that. So why would, is he going we're going back, way back, and then he just brings out these cars, or?
Yeah, I don't know. This ref might just like the feel of the circle. It might be one of those things. So I
think it looks bad, to be honest with you. Like, just looking at this, especially with the red, maybe if it was white, like we were talking last week, that would work.
This is the kind of thing where you show it and you put it on the player's nose, and he has to walk around with it, for the rest of the day, because he got a big red circle on his nose.
Yeah, that does not look right. That looks like a kindergarten game or something like that. Because I mean, I was talking about this last week. That almost looks like Photoshop at the same time.
Yeah,
I was talking about this last week. In England, cards are shown a lot more gently. Even if it's a red, it's like, here you go, there's a red for you, kind of a deal. So with this, it looks even worse. But I think in Europe, or in South America, where they show it with a vengeance and then just slam it in the guy's face, you probably don't want a round one. It's like slamming the face either. But
sticks on the forehead.
Dude, speaking of Wrexham, by the way, holy mother of God! As I was looking for the headlines yesterday and then this morning for the show, I mean, can we have more headlines? Normally, nobody would care. I'm sure people of Wrexham. I mean, I guess we can watch the show on Hulu and know for sure, but I'm sure they're happy that, obviously there's money being put into the club. So it helps the town, it helps the team. They bought a bunch of players like Mullen and stuff like that. But is that good for the sport in general, you think? Now, are you going to have Kim Kardashian go buy another club and this guy buy another club and stuff? It's going to be like a Hollywood get together over there.
Well, I mean, Michael B. Jordan did buy a bit of Bournemouth, so I think we're seeing a lot more, because I feel like these celebrities or these potential entrepreneurs, they see the potential value in these clubs, and they see kind of the model that Ryan and Rob were able to go and to do, and I think it's good for the sport here. I don't know how good it is for the sport there. And I think those are two different things that we have to take a look at. And I think given the show, the Welcome to Wrexham show, I watched it. I enjoyed it. I think it was a very a crash course into what the sport is, what the sport means for a lot of people who are not used to the sport. And it goes back to the LeBron conversation that you guys had on Friday. If it converts just a couple new people into being fans of the sport and fans of the team, then it worked, right? And I think that's ultimately the goal, is you're trying to get as much exposure. And with the amount of money that Ryan and Rob are pouring into this club, we're going to see it everywhere, because also the American media like ESPN wants to blast it all over the place, because look at these two Americans owning this club that is doing so much better than they expected to do in this competition. And so I think we're just going to keep seeing it. And I think we'll see more investment in smaller clubs. And like I said, it'll be good. It'll be really good here, and it might not be as good there, depending on the consequences of what happens. But that's where I sit with that.
I think, like Sparky says, it's always good to invest in grassroots football. I just hope it's not a case for, I think, like I say, this is great for Wrexham. It's great for the town. I mean, you can already tell, watch, which I feel like the show, I wish it was a bit more intro to soccer as opposed to the intro to the Welsh culture kind of thing, or a better mix of it. I don't know if there's a new season or not, but the ones I watched, I was like, even though they do introduce the game a little bit more, I wish they would focus more on that as opposed to just the local culture, or how they deal with that, the drama behind it and stuff. I just hope these guys don't get bored out of this, because that would hurt in the long run. I guess that's my more long-term worry than anything else. Suddenly, get everything going, and then you walk away. Back in the day, well, I don't know if you'll remember this, how Walmart used to screw small towns. Go into the town, they're like, oh, we got a Walmart. And then before you know it, all the small businesses are out of town. And Walmart is like, this didn't pan out for us. We're going to go. And then the town is screwed and stuff like that. So I guess that's more my fear. I don't know if it would translate the same way as this Walmart example. But I mean, like you're saying, if it converts anybody to watch the game and be more involved in it, it helps us over here in the US, because there's more people to talk to about the game too.
I think the show knows that their audience isn't big on the sport right away, so they're trying to use that the cultural emotion to bring people in and to show little clips of the game, and then maybe in the following seasons actually focus more on the games themselves and more on the sport itself once they've got people hooked. But I think they need to bring people in to understand what this is before they fully expose them to the sport, because the big thing with a lot of new fans is that they didn't like the sport to begin with, or they don't know about the sport. So to kind of hook them in emotionally with the people connection and the city connection, and then follow with the sport, I think is what they would go for. And then listening to maybe not Ryan Reynolds as much, but listening to Rob McElhenney and kind of watching him here and there, he looks like a guy who's in it. He doesn't look like the kind of guy who's just going to get bored and be done with it. I think he really wants to do. He has ambitions of the Premier League, which is great. Everyone should have ambitions. And I don't know if it'll happen in the next 10, 15 years, but he looks like a guy who will be there for the 10, 15 years if he has to be.
Yeah, he looks more emotionally invested than Ryan Reynolds, or maybe that's just the way Ryan carries himself. Dude, it's
and
just,
that could be it too. Yeah,
we live another day. Don't worry about it, kind of a thing. He kind of carries himself like that too. But yeah, as you watch it, Sparky says Parkinson didn't want the show to interfere with the football squad too much, but that's kind of the show is what brought the football squad as well as Parkinson. So everything is funded by the show. So it's almost it's not like one of these deals where Amazon is with City, Arsenal, and stuff like that. Because I know Klopp has said he would never allow that, and I think that's different because obviously the money is coming in, but it's not a main thing. Whereas for Wrexham, this is how the money is coming in and everything in the first place. I mean, God knows how much Wrexham stuff is being sold right now, online and all that, and 90% of those, I would guess, would not sell prior to the show. So it's kind of that deal. But let's go back to this. Our transfer correspondence, Kazi, says the cancel deal is confirmed. Of course, I don't know if we take these numbers that Kazi is providing, but sounds about right. So 70 million euros is for the whole deal, Polish Prince, not for the loan. 8 million for the loan, 62 the buy option. So we kind of talked about this a little bit on the chat as well, but this is City doing what they do in some ways, where they promoted a young player, Lewis, who's doing really well. This guy becomes expandable in some ways, and they cash in as opposed to saying, oh, let's just wait. He's been good for the team. He's a loyal player and stuff. Hold on, there's another animal in the background. It's like a freaking Ace
No,
Ventura over there,
it's the
dude.
same one. She just won't sit still.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was like a cat walking on the table. For a
No,
second.
no, never. Oh,
I
if
thought you
there's
were
a
just gonna
cat
get up
walking
like
at a
Ace
table, then I
Ventura,
should
like
leave.
birds were gonna come out and shit. Like, so like, I mean, it's something that we don't do. Like, we kind of like keep the guys till they don't, till they want to leave or till they cannot play anymore.
Right.
I mean, I think there's like a lot of examples, but what do you make of the deal overall?
I think it's a good deal for City, obviously, because they have the time and the resources and the money to make that kind of deal. And I know we were talking about a little bit on the chat and a little bit before we got on the air. It really depends on what situation you're in to be able to make that kind of decision. So I know Kazi had asked us in the Discord, would we take a similar deal for Robertson? And I think in our current state, as a club, we're in two different positions from City, right? City they're not having as good of a year as they typically do, but it's not like they've fallen off that much, right? They're still in second place. They can still win the title. They have 2 games left against Arsenal. If they beat Arsenal both of those games, there's a conceivable chance that they still win the whole thing. So they have that going for them, where they have this quality still. They haven't fallen off, so they have the capabilities of making such a decision. If we made the same decision in our situation right now, who do you have? You have Costas in the back, for the backup. Not everyone believes in Costas playing 90 every single game. He doesn't give us the same thing that Robbo gave us the first, 4 or 5 years. So I think overall for City, it's good business because I think that's just what they do. And I know we've talked about it before, but they're not afraid to let players go. When, there was a little thing where I think there's more to it than he's just kind of fallen out of favor because of form. I think there's more to do with him and Pep being kind of at each other's throats. So I feel like there's a big ego case going on there between the two of them. Because I think we saw the same thing with Cancelo at his previous club. The first 6 months he was world class, and then all of a sudden there were problems and there were things within the locker room. So he made the move to City, and he was amazing, and he was absolutely amazing. Even up to the World Cup, he was pretty good. He wasn't the same Cancelo he was last year because they were playing a different system, but he was still really good. And then post World Cup, is just everything changed. I think it was just mentally. I think there's just something that he and Pep didn't agree on, and Pep was like, "Fine, if you don't want to do this, I've got this kid here, and I've got Nathan Ake. We'll be fine. If you want to sit, fine, sit, and then earn your place back." And Cancelo, I don't think, is the type of player who wants to earn his place back. And so for him, this was the right move, and for City, good business overall.
I think that's the difference too. Like, they have those players, they have the depth already to be able to say that. I don't think Liverpool puts themselves in a situation where we can't say that. And when we were in that situation, we did not really take advantage of it and do it that way. So I guess. So here's the thing, and I think that's why Robertson, I thought, was an interesting example, just because it was a signing that we did. It wasn't a big signing. What was it, 14 or something at the time?
Less than that, I think.
Right? I can't remember how much it was. I thought it was somewhere in the teens, but I might be wrong. And it wasn't a big signing. Nobody was excited that we signed this guy from Hull City back then. And so it just kind of flew on the radar, and it turned out to be a great player. It just feels like, teams like City, take chances. I mean, we look at Brighton, who keeps buying people. I just saw this morning that they got the Swedish kids 7 million or something like that. I wish we did more of these roll of the dice, 6 million, 7 million, $8 million purchases where it's a low risk. So even if it is a flop and it doesn't make your team, you probably turn around and sell them to Bournemouth or whatever at the same amount, or maybe $1 million or so less. So it's not a huge loss, as opposed to just waiting. We don't have the money. And then just then you have to hit because you're spending 50 now, 60 now. So it has to be the guy that you want. You think that's mainly coming from Klopp? Because I feel we always, everybody harps on FSG, but you would think for a business plan, that's probably better for FSG to just buy a bunch of guys that are 8 million, 12 million, 14 million, as opposed to go get one guy for 40.
Yeah. And I think the position the club is in is really makes a difference there. Because I think if you see, let's say it's coming off the title winning season, right? And then you see FSG buying a bunch of guys for 7, 8, 9 million, you're going to have half the fans go, why are they buying such young, unproven kids at 7, 8, 9 million when they're Premier League champions, right? Why don't they go out and spend 50, 60, 70 million on proven guys that can help the depth of the team and can, that they need there. So I think there's that side of it. But I think part of it too is that Klopp, we've known that he doesn't like big squads. And that's kind of going back to conversations we've had. Is I know some people have said, oh, well, we wish we would have bought more depth earlier, like years ago, that we could rotate it in now. The problem is, would we have rotated when we had those guys? Who knows? Probably not, because Klopp likes to stick to those 14 guys, 15 max. And if you are buying a ton of potential talent and they're just sitting on the bench and waiting, it's tough. As a kid, if you're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old and you're getting an offer to play at Brighton, right, where you'll be able to play 70 to 80 to 90 minutes most games, or instead you get an offer from Liverpool where you might not crack the first team for the first year or two. Like, I can see how it's a very exciting prospect to go to a team like Brighton where you can play and can compete for those spots, where if you go to a team like Liverpool, you might not get in right away. But I know there's also the side of it, like you have to fight for your position regardless, whether you are going to Brighton or Liverpool, right? Like someone like Rico Lewis, he kicked out João Cancelo, essentially. That's something that we would have never said last year. We had no idea who Rico Lewis was. The only people who knew who Rico Lewis were like for the 6 people that follow the youth team for City. And it's like maybe they had an idea that he could be good, but no one predicted that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a tough conversation to have, because either way, whether you're spending big to try and bulk up the depth, or if you're spending little to try to bulk up the depth, there's going to be one side that says you're spending too much. What are you doing? And the other side saying you're not spending enough. What are you doing? I don't know if there's a happy medium for a lot of people.
See, I think the reverse, though. So it's odd that you say that. Like when you talk about, if the team wins the title and you're on the high, I think the fan base would be a lot more. When we buy the guy for 6 million, 9 million, I think it's a lot easier to say he could be the next Robo, or he could be this guy and stuff like that. You're like, oh, this is going to be great and all that. Whereas, like, if we bought a couple of guys that are 8 million now when we're struggling, I think it's going to be like, this guy is going to come and save us kind of a deal. Not to mention, now the incoming guy has a lot more pressure because he's coming into a situation where, especially if you're a young kid, now, I mean, it's already tough coming to a big club. I mean, if you're coming from even if you're coming from a big club in a Belgium league or something like that, coming to Liverpool, where it's more like global attention, is tricky. And then now it's a lot more on your shoulder. You're not just trying to blend in, because if that title winning team, if we rotated a lot more, you can come in the 60th minute, show what you got, start contributing, get your feet wet, and kind of like, oh, you did really well. Maybe next game you get like the entire half, or you start the cup game, whatever it is, or like a Champions League game, maybe that doesn't mean as much and stuff like that. You kind of get your feet wet and get more time. Whereas I feel now it's a lot trickier. So let me ask you this. So you're the Polish prince. If you had a littler Polish prince, as a dad, would you recommend your kid? Let's say your kid is playing in Netherlands in, I don't know, not for like one of the big boys, but like second tier, like Alkmaar or something like that. And the really good player, go to Brighton for 7 or go to Liverpool for 7 or 8. What are you telling your kid to do?
This is difficult because I think there's the bias already for Liverpool, right? So
okay, well, let me change the scenario.
But I understand. Okay, go ahead.
Let me change the scenario for you. Okay, 7 to Brighton. Well, I mean, the problem now is it's going to be biased either way, because now you're going to hate the other team.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go to Italy. Let's go to Italy. You go to Roma for 7, or you go to not Juventus anymore, but you go to Inter or somebody, Napoli for 7.
So I think the win-win situation is to be purchased by that team for 7, but be able to stay at your current club on loan for like the rest of the season, right? Because I think ultimately what I would want the most out of my kid is playing time, because everyone wants to play, and you want to be able to play and be able to feel like you're part of the squad. I know it's like I've been part of teams, in high school, right, where sometimes some of the guys that didn't play didn't feel necessarily part of the team, because yes, they would practice with you all the time, but they never got a chance to play in the actual games. And then by the end of the season, you might get thrown in for a couple minutes at the very end, and then you're like, you know what, I don't feel anything because I wasn't really part of this. I know I was there every day training, but I didn't feel part of it. So I know like you want to feel more part of the club, but then there's some guys like, hey, I'm here. I'm so happy to be here. I'm along for the ride. Like, let's go. You know, like Eddie Nketiah, if you the clip from All or Nothing that's going around with him and Emile Smith Rowe and Lukanga at the lunchroom table, and Lukanga is saying something about being unhappy that he's not playing, he's not getting playing time, and Nketiah looks at him and goes, "And so what? You know, we're all here. All of us want minutes. You know, it was what you make with the minutes." And we've seen what Eddie Nketiah has been able to do with his minutes that he's gotten. Yeah. I think like that's a good mindset to have. But not everyone can have that mindset. There's so many people in the world. You can't you can't expect each footballer to have the same sort of mindset. So I think depending on what kind of person you are, if you are a person who feels like they need to be part of the squad and how you feel that is by playing in actual games, then you need to go make a move to a lesser known club where you can get the minutes. If you're a player who feels like you can be part of the squad and training is what helps, because even if you're in training and you're training with world-class players, that can make you better too, as long as you're taking it seriously. You know, you're not just there for the motions, because I know there's moments where you're not playing, but if you're up against practice, like let's say you're guarding Salah, you're playing out on the wing with him all the time, you can learn a few things from him, right? And that can make you better. So I think it comes down to what kind of person you are. So it's a really, roundabout way to answer your question. I think I was
like, so what is the answer here?
I would have him go to the big club and fight for the minutes. I feel like that would, that's kind of the character you want to see out of someone who's really competitive, right? To be able to win that spot, to feel like, hey, you earned this. This is yours now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Sparky says it's a bad coach if you don't feel part of the team. And I do agree with that, especially, and it doesn't have to be with minutes, I feel. But you're right, too. Depends a little bit on the person. But I think the coach can find a way to show your value, not only by giving minutes, too. Like a good coach finds ways to show that you are part of the team, even though you're not playing. Like that's like a backup goalie or something like that you don't even freaking have a chance. It's not like you can rotate that. But I think, I agree with that. That is a little bit on the coaching as well. But I agree with you too. Also goes to the player. You can have a great coach. If the player has that mindset, I don't think there's any way around it. If he only sees value being shown as minutes, if that's how the player views the world, you can be the best coach in the world. I don't think that's going to change, but I don't think most players see it like that, especially young ones. But I think this ordeal is so much of opportunities. I mean, heck, I'm a 49ers fan, sadly. But I mean, you look at like freaking like Purdy, for example, right? I mean, this professional sports is, yes, a lot about talents, a lot about work, but it's a lot about luck too, in terms of being in the right place at the right time. So if you have the opportunity to be at a top club, even if it's going to be initially less minutes, if you have faith in your kid and his skill and his work ethic, because you're like, hey, even if it doesn't pan out and get a chance there, because there's a guy like Mo in front of him or something like that, you can always go to another club after. You can always go back to Brighton and, get your playing time there. But you never know, one injury and you can get your chance and you can do the thing. And you don't want to you don't want to think afterwards, man, what if I did? I don't think if you go to Liverpool, you probably don't say, man, what if I went to Brighton? Because you can always go back there. But at the same time, I think Brighton is probably not the best example, because they've really shown that they can take somebody, make him big, sell him. Like they will move on from him. They will not, they will not stop you. They will let you go because they got like somebody else in mind that they can go get like 6-7 million. But
I don't know. In 5 years, Brighton might be the buying club. We might be swapping.
Yes, the new Southampton of Premier League, and that's what just drives me crazy. Like all these people that we're like kind of like, and I don't know if we are interested in them, if we are in it for them or whatever. But at least that's what you read. It's just a matter of like why didn't we roll the dice? As a club with more finances, surely you have a bigger chance. But that's when we don't know the flip side of the things. Does the player want to roll the dice and come? I feel like right now, while the team is struggling, it's almost like better for a young player to be able to come and make an impact, especially if they're coming with experience. I think it's different than, like Jones and Elliott. When I say young, I don't mean young. But I do like the concept of, I was saying this yesterday, Fenerbahce has this kid, like he's like 17 now. I don't think he turned 18 yet. He's freaking unreal. But that's the kind of I mean, there's no way he can play in the Premier League. He doesn't even start for Fenerbahce regularly yet. He just started this weekend, for example. But buy him, loan him back.
Yeah.
Or heck, you should buy him, loan him. If you don't trust the Turkish league, which you probably shouldn't, like buy him and loan him to a team in Bundesliga or the team in Netherlands or something like
or
that.
Even the Championship or League One. I mean, there's
or even that.
Just keep them in the country. You can do that too. So.
And I know, like the work permits and all that kind of stuff gets a bit tricky. I think I don't know. That's why they sometimes like shoot these guys away, or I don't know if it's because they feel, like Netherlands is better known for developing young talents, and the Bundesliga in the same way. Like they really work on the player to improve the player, and it doesn't feel like only like a bottom line. Win or lose at all costs kind of thing. I don't care. We're going to play the experienced people kind of an attitude over there. But
yeah.
So tomorrow, go ahead. Sorry.
I think I read that before Brexit, like it was a lot harder to get these work permits situated, which is why maybe Liverpool wasn't as in-depth scouting in South America, because it was always a hassle to try to get the guys over with the work permits. Whereas now post-Brexit has become a lot easier. So I feel like it'd be a good time to really start kind of maybe making those moves, like you're saying, that where you find those guys for the 5, 6, 7 million, buy them, loan them back, do whatever, but just have them on your books just in case, because why not at this point? You're a club with such great stature that you can afford to have, several guys that you buy for that 5, 6, 7 million play elsewhere. Because I mean, most likely that club that they're playing for on loan, they're going to cover some of the wage costs too. So it's not like you have to you have to take over the whole bill. I mean, ideally they would be paying the contract, while they're at the club. But sometimes, if you're loaning him out to League One, his contract is like 40 grand a week. You might say, okay, like, we'll cover 30 of it as long as you cover 10 or something like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I wish we did, like, looking back now, I think when we were kind of like extending everybody at the time, we saw it as great. We're locking people in, even ourselves. Like now it's like, Monday morning quarterback kind of deal. Everybody is like, well, we should have just sold them then and stuff. But at the time, even we did not see, I think, how much the Klopp system would wear these guys down. I think it's basically ultimately that. We did not foresee that either. And we were like, great, he's locked until 2022. He's locked until 2024 and stuff like that. And we were happy with those like signings, and we increased the wage bill a lot. But I think maybe it was kind of like the wrong way to go. But at that time, it's hard to say to a guy like, I don't know, like all those extensions we were signing, we were like, yes, gotta lock in this guy, gotta lock in that guy and stuff like that. But so all these news is going to be flying around. Tomorrow is the deadline. The Cancelo deal is pretty much done deal. And that does sound like ridiculous that they would at the end get like 70 million for a defender. I mean, I guess defender age-wise, he's what, 29?
He's 29.
Yeah,
28 or 29. So, I mean, yeah, he's not, I mean, he's still technically in his prime, you could say.
Especially for a defender, I think he would be fine.
Yeah, especially for someone who's able to play the way he has. I don't think he's put in as many miles as someone like Robbo has, because they're similar ages, right?
Yeah.
And City doesn't play the same way as Liverpool, so they've been able to conserve some of Cancelo's legs better than Robbo's.
So let me ask you this before we leave for the day. Tomorrow is the deadline. Do you see? I mean, Klopp pretty much kind of shut it down, but we know how this goes. Klopp said, no, we're not interested in Alisson. And the next day he was here kind of like showing off his beard. So what do you think? Do we get anything happening? Anybody going out? Anybody coming in?
I'd say if anything, we'd see someone go out, like, another kid going out on loan like we saw today. I don't, as much as I think we would all love to see someone come in, I don't think that's going to happen. And just looking at some updates here, just kind of frustrating to see, Leeds had a center back, Llorente, that they just had leave on loan back to Spain. And then 30 minutes later, news comes out that they are signing a new center back. So like, it's one of those things, like, why can't a club like Liverpool, when during those times when they would sell the likes of Gini, the likes of Mane, like, why couldn't, I know DS was here, like, sometimes it's a bit different, but like, it just makes sense that to just cover what you're sending out, like, I think that would be the proper way to go about it. But I don't think anything's going to happen, because I don't think anyone's going to necessarily be sold for any money. And I think the only way that someone comes in this window is if someone gets sold for money. And there's nothing, you could say Nat Phillips for 20 million. Maybe someone was saying something like that. But then who are you bringing in for that 20 million that's going to realistically help for the end of this season? There's not
But
many
even if
names.
it's not, I'm okay with like selling Nats for 20 instead of waiting till Nats extends
Right.
his contract.
That too.
Again. Like get the 20,
Yeah.
and then like we'll be fine. And even if we're not fine, we'll put Hendo as center back or something. But I mean, I'm okay with that. I think the problem has been we've let Emre Can walk away. We've let Genie walk away. And I think when you wait for January, there's no way in hell you're getting the value for it. Just because everybody knows, well, in 3 months I can get them for free, so the offer is going to be a lot less. Is that summer before is you got to decide, are we extending him or are we selling him? And it should be one or the other. It shouldn't be we'll see how it plays out, let's think about it again in January. I think we do a lot of that, and we have players now like Keita and stuff like that we're on the same boat with. So what do you have there? Hold on, you have something there.
So, you talked about Roma, and I didn't know if we would have time for this. So I don't expect to go in depth in this at all. But you mentioned Roma. Sparky was talking about coaching, and so Jose Mourinho had the Roma team take a team photo yesterday after their loss to Napoli, and just you're just looking at this picture and you're like, I don't understand if this was a good idea or if this was a bad idea or what is going on. So I was curious to see what you thought of it here. So as you can see, they've got the likes of Abraham and Dybala. Dybala just looks like he's totally in another world. Like he doesn't know what is going on anymore.
So wait, this is yesterday?
Yeah, after their loss against Napoli.
Oh, they lost?
Yeah, they lost 2-1.
Okay.
And Jose is like, okay, guys, let's take a picture. And you can see Jose, he's like, I don't know if he's trying to rally them up or something, but everyone's like, meh. And then you have the one guy in the bottom right who's just giving a little smile. It's just like, I don't know. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, this is a very... I think
he's just happy to be there.
Yeah, I think this is a very weirard situation.
I mean, if they could squeeze maybe like a draw or something like that, yeah, I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know. Jose is one of those weird dudes where he could have been like, hey, we lost, but that was a great performance. We should celebrate the performance kind of thing. Like, I can see that from him. But hey, remember like when Klopp took what was like a West Bromwich Albion or somebody we tied? Who was that we tied?
I think it was West Brom. Yeah,
right. I thought it was like 2-2 or something like that. Everybody's like, oh, they're celebrating a draw. But he's been there a while. That was part of Klopp's building up of the team and kind of like bonding with the fans and stuff like that. Whereas this is just Jose. I think he wants to be another picture. Yeah, I agree with Sparky. He's just raising his profile because he wants Chelsea again. Yeah, he was like, wait, you guys are spending money again? I'm back, baby, kind of thing, ordeal too. But yeah, that's funny.
Todd Bowley's like, who is this Josie Mourinho guy? Who is this guy? Why is he? Why do people keep tweeting about him and us? Was he here before? Should we bring him back?
And you know what? Yeah, they were like, oh yeah, he's great at handling teams that spend a lot of money, which really he is in some ways. But yeah, that would be good humor. But I wouldn't look past it because they are still struggling. And I know it's not fair because they have all these injuries. Let's see what happens afterwards. But it's just a team that, to me, yeah, they're spending a ton of money, but I don't know if it's being spent with any kind of
They're spending to spend. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, like you won the lottery and you're in a mall or something.
Yeah, you get to go on career mode on FIFA and buy all get people who aren't used to setting up with teams and different tactics and stuff like, oh, this guy's very highly rated. Let me buy him. This guy's very highly rated. Let me buy him. And then you just stick all these guys together and you're like, all these guys are beautiful. And then, in the game, it works. But in real life, it doesn't always work.
And then, yeah, like they then see another guy. They were like, oh, shit, this is a center back, too. We just got one. Maybe we'll sell that guy because this guy looks better kind of a deal. Yeah, yep. It's just, I don't know. I mean, they're throwing a lot on the wall to see what sticks. And it's kind of like good to have that. Yeah, $10 in a Swedish shop, says Sparky. That's what it feels like. And then, they put that one back, grab the other one and stuff like that constantly. But at the same time, you got to applaud the effort, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where
at least they're doing something,
for
right?
Another day, but yeah. Well, Polish Prince, thanks again. Another Monday in the books. Start the week. League is back out of the FA Cup. We'll be back tonight in our regular time, 8 o'clock Central, with the gang where Bickler is jumping up and down with joy that we're out of the FA Cup. The white card. Yes, I had to show. Dude, I'll tell you what, it's kind of hard to get a fair play moment.
I was going to say, especially tonight, I don't know if there will be a fair play moment at all.
On any given night, it's kind of tricky to get a fair play moment on that Monday night podcast where I can show the white card, but I'll give it a shot again tonight. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining. We'll be back, like I say, tonight at 8 o'clock in our central regular time for the Monday night podcast, and I'll be back Wednesday with our very own Egyptian King for the morning breakfast show. Take care. Have an awesome week, everybody. See you guys later.